What is going on, everybody? In today's video, I'm going to be revealing my 2024 NFL Draft big board. So in 2023, I started my first big board officially. I had over 200 players, and I used it throughout my draft process with prospect grading, prospect ranking, and all that good stuff. And in this year, I'm starting early. Of course, it is the preseason. College football hasn't started yet. The NFL draft is in around 8 to 9 months from now, but it's never too early to start. And right now I have 105 prospects right now that I have listed on my board, around 50 something offense and then 40 something defensive players. Obviously, there are more offensive positions specifically, but let's get into the first thing, which is my grading system. Now, you won't have to immediately know the grading system right now, as of course none of these prospects have any grades on them attributed to them yet, because I haven't done my prospect grading system yet. But we have blue chip prospects, early first round grades, mid first round grades, late first round grades, early second round grade, a borderline first, a late second round grade. Last year I had 2 third round grades, but this year I only have 1. I had an early and a late third, but this year I combined it. A fourth, a fifth, a sixth, a seventh round grade. You'll all see those when draft season comes around. But right now, you don't necessarily need to worry about them because I haven't attributed any of the prospects' grades yet. But as you can see, they are still colored in. These are my projections as of the 2024 NFL draft. Like guy like Caleb Williams, I think is a blue chip prospect, and he'll probably have a grade of over 7 when I get to his film and his prospect breakdown. And a guy like Drake May, I think will end up being a first round grade for me when I get to that. It's not where they're going to get drafted. It's partially where they're going to get drafted and partially how good they are as a player, and then also how partially I think they are, going to be in the NFL, how good I think they're going to transition. So with all that being said, we can get started into the rankings and the position rankings. So I have 2 lists this year. I have the list, obviously, you're seeing right now, where it's one position, you have the guys listed in order. But this year, I have exact position football depth charts. So, for example, like you can see for the quarterback, pro style and dual threat, that is basically like what 24/7 does, high school rankings. For example, like Bryce Young would be considered a dual threat. CJ Stroud would be considered a pro-style quarterback. It's basically their play styles and where they would fit on an NFL depth chart. Like, for example, running back, speed or power back. For a receiver and for tight ends, where would they be lined up as a position player? Would they be the X? Would they be the Z, the slot? And then for tight ends, the Y or the H. I usually get confused on wide receiver and tight end, like exact positions on depth charts, and when you were looking at exact plays, like we all like those big plays, bunch, whatever, trips. So it depends really on the scheme and the depth chart and the size and the skill of the position player. For wide receiver and tight end, this is more like their area. So for the wide receiver, the X is the big receiver who plays on the outside or on the boundary. The Z, there are 2 definitions of the second receiver on your depth chart. It's either the Z or the Y, also depending on your system, of course. The Z technically is your speedy receiver who is not as big as the X, but is not as small as the slot. He'll mix in the slot and the Z. He'll be around like traditionally 5'11", 200-ish, 190 pounds. The Z is more like a Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle is a very good example of what a traditional Z would do, but without Jalen Waddle's speed. It's more like his build and his skill set. And then obviously the slot, these are the smaller guys, but they're the most agile and they're the most elusive, and they're the best route runners on the team due to their size. And then moving on to the tight end position, you have, I remember 2 mainly, the Y and the H. For the Y, the Y is on the line of scrimmage. He's the set tight end on the line. He'll either have his hand in the dirt or he'll be, out a little bit in line with the offensive line. A great example of a Y tight end in the league is George Kittle. George Kittle plays in line with the offensive line, and then when he's not set as an offensive lineman or an extra offensive lineman, he's in line with them on a certain type of formation. Deebo Samuel plays more of like that H-back role. And so what an H is the H-back. he's a set tight end, but not on the line of scrimmage. He's either behind the line of scrimmage, slightly behind the offensive tackle, or he's playing at a receiver position, but also not set on the offensive line. If you see a bunch formation, he's the one that's shifted backwards with the Z or the slot shifted right before him. You have the H, and then you have the other receiver next to him. So you have the 1, 2, 3, and then the H-back would be right there. A good example of an H-back would be Jonnu Smith back in Tennessee. He played that H-back position, and Travis Kelce plays a hybrid between the both of an H-back and a Y. And then obviously we have left tackle, left guard, center. There's obviously only one center. And then for the defense, there's 4-3 defensive ends, 3-4 defensive ends, outside linebackers, and then jack linebackers, which I put in under edge rusher. 4-3 is 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers. 3-4 is 3 down linemen, 4 linebackers, and then an outside linebacker / edge rusher. He could be an outside linebacker in a 3-4 where he's rushing off the edge as a stand-up linebacker, or be a stand-up linebacker but set on the line of scrimmage in a 4-3, like Kayvon Thibodeau for the Giants, or an outside linebacker. A good one is Hassan Reddick for the Eagles. And then the last edge rusher position is a jack. This is what Micah Parsons plays in the NFL. So jack linebacker is a linebacker that'll rush the passer, but also drop back into coverage when needed to. But they're a primary pass rusher, but then they bump back into coverage when they need to. That's obviously what Micah Parsons does in the NFL. And then an interior defensive lineman position, you can either have a defensive tackle or a nose tackle. A DT can play in a 4-3 as a 3-tech or a 2-eye, and then a 3-4 defensive tackle will be also a 4-eye or a 3 technique. Techniques are where they line up against the offensive lineman on the line. So if you're a 3 tech, you line up on the slightly to the right or left of the offensive tackle. And if you line up in the 2, you line up directly on top of the offensive tackle, or not offensive tackle, offensive lineman if you're an interior defensive tackle. And then a 2-eye is you shift slightly towards the right or left of the offensive guard or center, and you just place slightly off. It's a 2-eye instead of a 2, which is directly on, and then a 3, which is in the middle, where the middle is you split the tackles and the guards, or the guards and the centers. And then the nose tackle is you play right above the center, or you play slightly to the left or the right of the center. And then for the linebacker position, you have the Mike, Will, and Sam. These are commonly renowned phrases for linebacker positions. There are 3 main ones. There's a 4th that I don't have listed on here. There are many names for linebackers, but those are the main 3. Middle linebacker, which is called the Mike. This is the quarterback of the defense. This is like Fred Warner, Roquan Smith. You have the weak side linebacker. These are the guys that are more coverage-specific linebackers. They're too heavy to be safety and not fast enough, but they're also not heavy enough to rush the passer. They're around 220 pounds, traditionally around 6'2", like that build set-wise. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, if you know him on the Browns, he is a great example of a traditional weak side linebacker. And then you have the strong side linebacker. These are your run-heavy linebackers. These are up from 230 to 240-pound linebackers, and they play the strong side. So essentially the strong side and the weak side are 2 areas of the defense, to where the strong side has the most personnel on the field. So if you're playing the strong side, you have the tight end on your side of the field. If you have the weak side, you don't necessarily have the tight end on the same side. So if you have 5 players, if you cut the line into half with the center and the quarterback, you have 6 players on one side, 5 players on this side. The 5 players is the weak side, the 6 players is the strong side. And strong side linebackers necessarily need to be heavier because the strong side is most likely to be ran on, doing through counters, through zone runs. So offenses like to run to the strong side. You go, and you need to be bigger to attack the run. And then the weak side is likely more to be passed to, as receivers will cross the middle of the field to go to that area, so you need to be faster for the coverage. There are 2 cornerback positions that I look towards. Right and left cornerback kind of don't matter. You play both sides unless you're specialized for the right side. But there are 2 boundary cornerbacks. You play either on the hash marks or outside of the hash marks, and then the slot, which is the nickel cornerback. These are the smaller cornerbacks who play inside of the hash marks and closer towards the line of scrimmage or closer towards the linebacker unit, not the boundary guys. And then obviously there are technically three safety positions, but I only have two listed: free safety and strong safety. The other one obviously is the box, which is mainly strong safeties. Mainly strong safeties will play in the box. And then obviously special teams is kicker and punters. After that quick football lesson, we're going to move on to my rankings in total. I'm really only going to go over a few of these players in depth, maybe like 30-ish players fully in depth. Obviously, I have 105, but this video would be an hour if I were going to talk about every single player. So I will simplify some of this video, but I will obviously give you guys enough information to know why I have these players ranked where they are. Starting off with quarterback, I have Caleb Williams. He's talked at ad nauseum, really. Caleb Williams, phenomenal quarterback, the Heisman winner. He reminds me, I've seen a lot of Patrick Mahomes comparisons, and he does have very good arm angles, and he looks like Patrick Mahomes sometimes, but I can more see what Kyler Murray was out of Oklahoma. Caleb Williams is on the smaller side. He's 6'1", 215-ish pounds. Patrick Mahomes is a bigger quarterback at 6'5", around 230. I see shades more of Kyler Murray than of Patrick Mahomes. He has elements that Patrick Mahomes does have, like his ability to throw on the run, his arm angles, creating during the play in the pocket, and being able to have that ability. But he runs exactly like Kyler Murray. If you watch any videos of him, he runs with the same way with the football in his hand like that. He's on the shorter side, and he plays very much like Kyler Murray, and obviously they're both going to be number one overall picks. I think Caleb Williams does become the number one overall pick. He is my highest rated player currently in this draft class. Not like a superstar level arm like Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen will have, but I think he has right around where Kyler Murray's arm is. Like, for a reference, I guess a 60-yard throw where he doesn't need to necessarily load up a ton. He'll make it that kind of pass, but not like a Josh Allen where he's going to bomb it from the 1 and hit it to the 30-yard mark. Drake May is my number 2 rated quarterback in this class. He's a similar quarterback to Caleb Williams, more like Justin Herbert if I were to make an NFL comparison as of now, except if Justin Herbert had slightly less arm talent and more of rushing ability. They're both dual threat quarterbacks. But Drake May, around 6'4", 230 pounds. He had over 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 7 interceptions in 2022. A very solid quarterback all around. He's a very safe option for me, other than the fact he's coming from UNC, which they don't produce the most excellent quarterbacks there. But he's got great arm talent. He's got good enough accuracy. He's got a good enough arm power. He's really good on the ground, as he had over 700 yards and 7 touchdowns, and ran for 8 yards per carry or something like that. I think 7 yards per carry at UNC. He is losing his number 1 receiver in Josh Downs in 2023, as Josh Downs went to the draft for the Colts in the 3rd round. So it'll be a question. They do have some transfers coming in, but I like Drake May as my number 2 overall quarterback. Michael Penix Jr. is my 3rd quarterback, and Bo Nix is my 4th. These two I both have 2nd round grade-ons. Michael Penix Jr. I have outside of the 1st round. He had a breakout year at Washington, was top 5 in passer rating, I'm pretty sure. But the problem with Michael Penix Jr. is, one, is he's left-handed. That'll always inhibit you, in my opinion. Left-handed quarterbacks, there's only one in the NFL, and it's Tua Tagovailoa, and he doesn't nearly have the arm power that pretty much every other quarterback has in the NFL. You can clearly see a lot of his balls dying, and Michael Penix Jr. is similar in that aspect. He also doesn't have a phenomenal arm, but he has got good accuracy, and he's got a lot of experience at the quarterback position. He's played for 4 years already, and he's entering his 5th year. He's going to be 23, pretty sure, by the NFL draft. So he's seen a lot of football. He's overall pretty solid for the position, and I would take him in the 2nd round if I was looking for a quarterback that would have to sit for a year. I don't think he'll enter that 1st round conversation for me. I don't necessarily see a first-round evaluation for a quarterback like him, who is undersized and left-handed. Those are two big negatives for his style of quarterback. Obviously, I have him as a pro-style quarterback. Doesn't run very often, doesn't leave the pocket too much. So I have him as a second-rounder. And then Bo Nix is kind of the opposite of Michael Penix Jr. Bo Nix has got phenomenal ability on the ground, hit 1,000 rushing or almost 1,000 rushing yards and 14 touchdowns on the ground in 2022. But he's always had accuracy issues, especially at Auburn when he entered his freshman and sophomore year of college, both under 50% completion percentage. But he transferred to Oregon, had an amazing year, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 14 touchdowns on the ground, 4,000 all-purpose yards. But the thing about Bo Nix is it's kind of like an Anthony Richardson situation, except Bo Nix, I think, has would have better transition ability right off the bat, except less potential. Great on the ground. He's great on the ground, but he always is going to have that limitability or limited aspect that is accuracy and his arm power and his throwing ability, and his arm talent is never fully going to be there. So I don't see him also escaping the first round ability unless he balls out. Quinn Ewers and JJ McCarthy both are third-round grades. They're both still unproven as passers, in my opinion. Quinn Ewers has got an accuracy issue. JJ McCarthy has an arm talent issue. He's similar to JJ McCarthy, and Bo Nix are very similar in the fact that they don't have spectacular arm talent, but are really solid on the ground and manage the game pretty well. But Quinn Ewers has an accuracy issue. It was under 60% last year, but it's looking really well in his training camp. In spring training for Texas, and he is probably the one. Him and Joe Milton have the best chance of jumping their positions, as Quinn Ewers and JJ McCarthy, in my opinion, both have a chance to stick back into college. If they stay another year, they'll probably end up being the quarterback 1 and 2. As JJ McCarthy is entering his redshirt sophomore season. His true junior season, and then Quinn Ewers is in his redshirt sophomore season. And JJ McCarthy doesn't have a successor. I could see him reclassing, and then Quinn Ewers I can also see reclassing, even though I think they're going to try to get him out of there for Arch Manning, who they signed in 2022. Shedeur Sanders, I also think, is a guaranteed reclass at Colorado. They're transferring from his HBCU to Colorado, where he is, and so is his father in Deion Sanders. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders is the son of him. But I don't know how he's going to play in the SEC, so I have a 4th-round grade on him, which is developmental traits. So he was very good at JCU, had over almost 40 touchdowns in 2022, but I need to see him at the SEC level the Power 5 level, before I make a 3rd-round grade or a 2nd-round grade. He's still a question mark in the air, and I have him slightly down the board for me, but he also is another guy who I think can jump up. Joe Milton is crazy arm talent. Michigan transferred to Tennessee, and when Hendon Hooker went out with the torn ACL, Joe Milton came in, and he probably has the best arm power purely out of any of these guys, but out of any of these other quarterbacks. He's also humongous. He's standing over 6'5", 240 pounds. But pure pocket passer quarterback, doesn't offer too much for the running game, and he also does have accuracy issues. But I think if you can develop that arm talent, he has an absolute cannon. But you kind of need to develop his accuracy, and he's been in the he was at Michigan for 3 years, and he's been at Tennessee for now. This is going to be his 2nd year at Tennessee. So another older guy. He'll be 24 or 24 or 25 when he gets to the draft. So obviously I have a 4th-round grade on him. And then the next couple of guys I'm just going to run through. Jordan Travis out of FSU, pure pocket passer, and I really like FSU's chances this year. They've got a ton of phenomenal wide receivers, but he obviously doesn't have the highest ceiling out of any of these guys. Jaden Daniels out of LSU, I like a lot. KJ Jefferson is a pure rushing quarterback, doesn't offer too much for your arm talent. Michael Pratt is another guy who doesn't offer too much as a passer at the next level, but offers a ton as a rusher. Spencer Rattler, a 6th-round grade. He was really highly looked at out of high school and has only fallen off since. Had a transfer out of Oklahoma as Caleb Williams, who was my number 1 quarterback, took his job at Oklahoma, and Spencer Rattler had to transfer to South Carolina. He had a few superstar games where he threw for 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, but then he had other games where he had 3 interception games. And then Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami. I have 14 quarterbacks currently graded, and that's going to be it for my quarterbacks. I think that's going to be it. Unless one guy pops off this year and declares for the NFL draft, I'll add him, but I don't see right now more than 14. So as this video is already going long, I think I'm only going to cover the offense in this video and then the defense in the next video. So moving on to running back position, I have Blake Corum and Raheem Sanders directly tied for my number 1 spot. I like Blake Corum a lot out of Michigan. He obviously was in Heisman contention before breaking his ankle, but the thing about Blake Corum is he's on the shorter side and he doesn't have the best explosiveness compared to some of these other guys. Even though he is probably as top 5 burst and explosiveness within the running back group, the guy who I have above him has the most explosiveness, which is Raheem Sanders out of Arkansas. He has NFL size at 6'2", 220 pounds. He has the mold of a running back, of a modern-day running back who can catch out of the backfield, who can do a one-cut through the hole, who can break tackles. I like Raheem Sanders a lot, and I think he ends up being the number 1 running back in this class, and that's mainly my projection here of why I'm having him slightly over Blake Corum. Blake Corum probably is the best running back in college football right now, but is he the best prospect for the NFL? That's my mindset right now speaking. But I like Blake Corum a lot, and I have his teammate Donovan Edwards slightly under Braylon Allen, who I have as my number 1 power back. Has just NFL size. He can catch a little bit out of the backfield. Wisconsin produces a lot of really good running backs. We saw it in Jonathan Taylor in 2020. I like Braylon Allen, and then Donovan Edwards, obviously, I have as my number 4 spot. These guys both have second round grades. I do not have any first round graded running backs right now. Last year's class I viewed higher than this one's, but there are some really good solid running backs in this class. Donovan Edwards obviously had a great end of the season when Blake Corum went out with his ankle injury. He dominated Ohio State, had a really good game against TCU in the college football playoffs. He's another guy who's got really good burst really good burst and catching ability, but not the greatest power ability. He is also on the smaller side. But Travion Henderson, freshman. I don't think he made the freshman All-American team in 2021, but he was obviously on the Ohio State team that made the national championship that beat Clemson. Justin Fields led one. But in 2022, he went out with an injury and is fairly inconsistent, but that injury did hold him back last year. Would like to see him bounce back. He's highly looked at within the draft community. I have him top 5 still. But would like to see what he does on a full season. Bucky Irving out of Oregon, then Will Shipley out of Clemson. I like Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving's super fast guy, but not the highest upside for me. And then Will Shipley is a balanced running back. He doesn't excel at one specific thing, but he's solid enough to where you can have him on a 2-down system for running backs, but I think he's like a mix-in running back who you can draft in like the 3rd or 4th round, as I have a 3rd round grade in him right now, or 3rd round projection. And then Trey Benson at FSU, I have him as my last guy. Overall, another guy that's balanced, a solid guy. But one thing about him is he's more of a receiving back. But he does have, I think, the limited upside out of the 8 guys that I have graded so far. Don't have a ton of graded running backs as of now, but that'll likely increase when the season gets underway, because running backs typically could have a breakout season and then they're immediately put in to the draft position, unlike quarterbacks where we kind of know what's going on with the quarterback position entering into the preseason, and then you just flip-flop the list. Meanwhile, for running backs, you could just kind of pop in them. One guy will fall off the board completely. One guy will be added in. Moving on to the receiver position, I have Marvin Harrison Jr. obviously is my number 1 guy. He's my number 2 graded player, or number 2 projected player for the 2024 NFL draft. I mean, love him. He's the son of a Hall of Famer, Marvin Harrison. But he doesn't necessarily play like his father or is the build. Marvin Harrison on the Colts was around 5'11", 190 pounds. Marvin Harrison Jr. is 6'4", 205, and has phenomenal aggressive catch and possession catch ability. He's got advanced route running for his age. He's only around 20. He'll be 21 by draft season. And his body control is the thing that really highlights him different from all of these other receivers. He just has like a special ability of body control for his size. It's 6'4", 205 with his build. He's kind of like if you put Garrett Wilson in the NFL, and Garrett Wilson's highly, highly looked at. If you put Garrett Wilson in a 6'4" to 105 body, that's kind of how Marvin Harrison plays, except without that like at least elusive explosiveness to where he's just gonna cut one cut and he's gone. He doesn't have that ability that Garrett Wilson does, but he has the body control. He has the aggressive catch ability, and obviously they're both from Ohio State under the Brian Hartline system. And if you look right below him, you have Emeka Egbuka, who I have as my number 2 receiver in the class. He's not as dynamic as Marvin Harrison Jr., but he is very fast. He has phenomenal hands. He doesn't drop many balls at Ohio State. Also has good route running. Overall, a very solid receiver who, if you can't draft Marvin Harrison Jr., who will likely go top 5, Emeka Egbuka is not a bad choice within the mid-teens for the NFL draft, which I think that's kind of where he's going to go. And then my early second-round players, and my second-round players are Romeo Odunes, Troy Franklin, and then Johnny Wilson. Odunes is playing with Michael Penix Jr., had a really good year with him last year. He's another X-build receiver, as he's my number 2 X receiver in this draft class, around 6'3", 200 pounds. Another guy, great jump ball ability that you can target in the end zone. And another guy who's really good after the catch, Troy Franklin out of Oregon. He's got a weird build because he plays the Z. He's around 6'3", but he's 160-something pounds. Looking at my stats on here. By the way, this is my Google Docs version of my draft board if you want that area. He's 6'3", 178 pounds. Little thin for the position, but he could even be a big slot at the NFL level, and he's fast. Really fast at Oregon. Johnny Wilson is a very interesting receiver as well. He's 6'7", 230, so he could even move to the tight end position or the H-back if a team wanted to scheme him towards. And he also has good athletic ability and good speed for his size. At 6'7", 235, that's a red zone threat right there. But he obviously has limited upside as like a route runner. He's got a lot to move, so he's limited on that aspect. But if you just want to throw it up to him in the red zone or have him in the short game, he's perfect for that ability. Malik Neighbors, Dorian Singer, and Xavier Worthy are my third-round graded receivers. Neighbors out of LSU had a really good breakout year in his sophomore season. Overall, very balanced, solid receiver. Dorian Singer out of Arizona, another guy who had 1,000 yards in 2022, transferring to USC to go with Caleb Williams. We'll see how that goes. And Xavier Worthy, who obviously is a very notable name that's far down my board currently. He's weird. He is undersized at 5'9", around 180 pounds. Oh, no, sorry. 6'1", 163 pounds. I'm thinking about the wrong Texas receiver. Smaller guy thinner guy, and is not super good down the field. And when you're a smaller receiver, thinner receiver, you want to be farther away from cornerbacks and from linebackers as you possibly can. Look at Devontae Adams at Alabama. You want to get in space the best. And the problem with Xavier Worthy is he's got already a limited route tree, and he isn't great at the tree that he's given. So he runs a lot of posts and a lot of go routes, and his tracking ability isn't quite there, and he drops a lot for somebody who you want to be a reliable downfield threat. He doesn't quite hasn't put it all together, but hopefully with a full year with Quinn Ewers, those numbers will get back up to where they should be, as he does have the potential to do that. And then I have Jacob Crowning, Ja'Cory Brooks, and Adonai Mitchell as my 4th-round guys. Ja'Cory Brooks is solid. These guys mainly have size. And then Adonai Mitchell, 6'4", Ja'Cory Brooks, 6'3", Jacob Crowning is 5'11", 175. He's just a pure slot guy. Ja'Cory Brooks I have as 6'2", and then Adonai Mitchell, 6'4". Moving on to my tight ends, I have Brock Bowers, Jatavion Sanders as my top 2. Brock Bowers is my 3rd highest graded player in the entire draft class. I love him. He plays the H-back to where he is just doing everything for the Georgia offense. Whatever they need him to do, he's going to be able to do it. He ran multiple times during the season. He's a receiver. He can play in the slot. He can play on the boundary on the outside. He can be a red zone threat. He could be the guy who you're going to run on a quick dig. He's going to be the guy that you target on the middle of the field. He's going to be the guy that's your first read on the outside, quick out on an RPO. Whatever you want him to do, Brock Bowers can do it. He's in the mold of Travis Kelce, or like a modern day receiving tight end. Doesn't offer too much as a blocker, but if you offer that much as a receiver, I mean, he led Georgia in yards, receiving yards, receptions, and was tied for tight ends, and was tied for touchdowns. And he won the tight end of the year award, and he could easily repeat that if he really wanted to. And Georgia targeted him enough, he could win it again easily. He's really good. I've obviously my 3rd graded player, and he plays the H-back position. That's where I play him in the NFL. He's on a similar level to Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is a generational tight end, but I think Brock Bowers is just like one behind him. It's Kyle Pitts, and then it's Brock Bowers in my favorite tight ends that I've ever seen since I've been doing the NFL draft. He's just slightly under him. Jatavion Sanders is my best inline tight end. Great red zone threat, very secure hands, reliable tight end that'll likely go in the 2nd round. And then the 3 third-rounders I have is Jaheim Bell, Brevin Spann-Ford, and then Michael Trigg out of Mississippi. Jaheim Bell is the smallest tight end I have on this list, 6'3", 232 pounds, but he is probably the fastest, and he plays the H-back. I've even seen him at fullback sometimes, and he'll play off of the line of scrimmage when they have him slip in if they need him as a receiver. But he is in the mold of an H-back. Spann-Ford, a bigger tight end at 6'7", 270 pounds. He'll be more of like mixed in as a 3rd offensive lineman, kind of like how Darnell Washington played last year at Georgia. And then Michael Trigg is another all-around tight end, a little thinner at 6'3", 240 pounds. But he's had a lot of experience at Mississippi, and he's an overall solid tight end to throw to. And then Cade Stover out of Ohio State, and then Eric All out of Iowa. I have both 4th-round grades on. Moving on to offensive tackle. This is one of my favorite entire groups in the entire NFL. I have them ranked 2nd on my overall position group. I didn't even get into this, but I'll get into that next video. Obviously, I don't need to. You can see the rankings right there. But for offensive tackles, I've got Joel and Olufasanu as both early 1st-round projections. I like Joel slightly more. He allowed less pressures than Olufasanu did at Penn State. He's a phenomenal run blocker. He's the best technically sound pass blocker in this class, period, in my opinion. And he just has the pure production of an offensive tackle. He will never give up pressures, 0 sacks. His technique looks phenomenal. He's great at the run blocking position. He's the best pass blocker in college football right now. He had a 91-something PFF grade, which was one of the highest of all time since they've been grading. In my opinion, he's my favorite tackle. And he obviously plays the left side. Him and Olufasanu are my top-rated tackles. They are also left tackles, which is the most important tackle position in the NFL. So Olufasanu, the one gripe I have about him is he sometimes gets knocked down too often. His balance isn't the greatest, but he is heavy at 321 pounds, 6'6". Outside of that, I don't necessarily have too many gripes for him. He's I would say a slightly better run blocker. He's more of like a mauler type of offensive tackle for left tackle position. So if you had two different systems, a pass heavy or run heavy position, you could go with either one of these guys. But if you're a pass blocking system, go with Joe Alt. If you're a run blocking system, go with Olu Fasano, because I think he offers the best as a run blocker, a pure run blocker. That's why I have them in the same projection and grades. The second, or my third offensive tackle, is J.C. Latham, my best right tackle for the 2023 NFL class. Another very, very solid pass blocker. In an RPO system, he's perfect because he just will block, and then the throw or the run will be made, and then the play is basically over for him. Yeah, he'll offer the most as a pass blocker, and he's solid as a run blocker, but not as good as maybe a guy like Kingsley Su'Mata'i or Blake Fisher out of Notre Dame, who are my next two highly rated offensive tackles. Kingsley Su'Mata'i, he has positional versatility. He played right tackle last year, as Blake Freeland played left tackle. He moves over to the left side in 2023. Overall, super solid offensive tackle. I have him as a second round grade. And then Blake Fisher, who is a Notre Dame tackle, who plays on the right side next to, or outside, on the opposite side of Joe Alt. Another guy, super solid, really good against the run. And these guys also both have NFL size. Blake Fisher, 6'6", 237. Kingsley Su'Mata'i, 6'6", 225. So these five offensive tackles I have pretty much no gripes with. It seems like a very good tackle class. These guys are all safe options, and they're balanced. They can both play the run and the pass really well. They're not undersized. They're all 6'7" or 6'6". But then moving on to the other offensive tackles, I have Graham Barton as a second round grade out of Duke. Pass blocking, great out of Duke. And then a little less to offer with the penalties. Does allow a few of those. Artemis Mims out of Georgia. Johan Morum out of USC. I have third round grades on. And then Zion Nelson. I forgot to mention Johan Morum is a little undersized at 290 or 295. You can see that a little bit. He will get pushed back due to his obviously weight, and won't offer the most as a run blocker, but technically he's pretty sound. And then Artemis Mims as a pass blocker, very good on the right side, allowed 0 sacks and how many pressures? I think less than 15. He allowed I think it was 11 pressures per PFF in 2022. And then Zion Nelson, injury-ridden season last year. He was eligible to declare in 2022, but was injured and is transferring, or is now eligible for this season in 2022 or 2023. Sorry, 2024. I got 3 years wrong. He's eligible this year, and I have him as a fourth round grade right now. We'll have to see how he comes back from injuries. The guard position is one of my least favorite. I'm pretty sure I have it last in my class rankings right now. Overall, I really have 3 guards that I like a lot, and then the rest are, I think, good, but not like excellent. Guard positions are necessarily thin. If we add interior offensive linemen, then you kind of get a better look at each class in general. But I like to separate the two because center is one position, guard is another position. Kind of like interior line, like it's not like interior linemen where they can play pretty much both positions. Guards and centers are they're 2 different positions for me. And then you have to flip the sides for the guards. So, but Donovan Jackson is my first guard out of Ohio State. Very good run blocker. That's where he's going to make his money in the NFL. Cooper Beebe and Connor Colby are both guards, or both tackles that flip to guards. So they're already unproven as guards, as this is their both their first year starting at guard. Even though Colby Connor, I think, Connor Beebe played at guard, I think, last year at Kansas State, and this is Colby Connor's first year playing guard at Iowa, if I'm correct. But these guys are both really big guys. Colby Beebe is 6'4", 322, and then Colby Connor is 6'6", 308. So these are big guards, and they're both transitioning from tackle It'll be interesting to see how they do, but right now I have second round grades on both of them. They're both really solid guys. They're both obviously good run blockers, and that's why they flip to guard, and then their athletic profile would make them go to guard. Moving on to Christian Mahogany and then Bukes Limmer out of Arkansas. These are both just solid every down guards. I have both third round grades on that, or third round projections on them. And then Layden Robinson and Tate Ratledge, I have fourth round grades on them as well. And then the center position, this is my last position group for the video. They're just solid. They're overall solid guys outside of Cedric Van Pran, who is the best all-around center in this draft class. He can pass block very well, but as a run blocker, very good run blocker. Bryce Foster, solid. Zach Francis, solid. And then Drake Nugent, this will be his first year starting at center. Moving from guard, if I'm pretty certain, because Jalen Scruggs was the center last year, got drafted to the NFL, and this is Drake Nugent's first year. And that's pretty much it for the 2024 NFL Draft Board, the offensive side. In the next video, I'm going to be going over the defensive side, which shouldn't be pretty bad. There are less defensive players than offensive players, obviously, due to the quarterback position I have super inflated. But if you like that video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know some of your prospects that I should add to this list. Obviously, there are 105. There are 260 draft slots. So let me know more players that I should write down. Let me know some attributes that these guys have so I can know these prospects better. Obviously, I can't know them all to the T. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.